That brings up another interesting thing. You were talking about record labels, major labels, and I'm wondering if AI won't be the final nail in their coffin too.
I'm afraid you're right, because all it's going to take is releasing that, like it was a human being, and because there's no expense.
Right.
So once again, it'll be dollar driven, and that could be absolutely the end of that.
Yeah.
So
there'll be so much of it, they'll be unable to control it.
Oh yeah.
Unless there's some kind of laws passed or something controlling AI to a certain extent.
I have zero faith in our Congress to pass anything meaningful, because once again, they're driven by the dollar too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as we talked earlier, it changes all the time too. So.
Yep. And they're so slow. They're so slow to react.
Mm-hmm.
They're not proactive. They react, and usually too late.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm criticizing them, but at a lot of points, I think they've deserved it.
Yeah. Can you tell any funny stories that your grandpa used to tell or anything?
Oh goodness!
I wanted to ask you that too.
I'm not sure I have any I could repeat. He was a unique person, I tell you.
Yeah.
I sure do miss him. He always had some really good words of wisdom, and a lot of them, to this day, I think, gosh, he taught me some good lessons. That I didn't even know at the time was a lesson, but it was. It was kind of an unspoken rule at our house, and I didn't understand it at the time. The one thing we didn't talk about at home was music, and the one thing we didn't do at home was listen to music. We never had a home stereo. We never listened to music. And I had friends just like, "Oh, have you heard this?" I said, "No, I hadn't." But I didn't understand it then, but I get it now.
Yeah.
Because when you do this every day, all day, then the last thing you want to do when you go home is listen to more.
Yeah.
Because that's work, and at some point you have to figure out how to draw the line to have a working life and a home life. And of course, if you're in this industry, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you were in it. So, and of course, Dad was the same way. The same as my grandpa. And,
yeah.
But yeah, oh goodness, yeah. I wish I could repeat some of it.
Yeah.
I probably better not on some of it.
Well, I remember him and your granny used to have their own duplication shop aside from here. Y'all were kind of two separate entities.
We were
for a while. Mm-hmm. And the first cassette, me and my family band, bluegrass band, had duplicated. Your grandpa did it for us.
Right.
And I remember we got to chat with him for a few minutes up there.
Yeah.
And I think the next time,
right next door here to the studio, actually. Yeah.
Right. I think the next time we came to you guys with it.
Right.
Your grandpa might have been sick.
Yeah, more or less. That was my grandpa being bored.
Yeah.
And he just needed something to do. Well, he fell back to what he knew, which was duplication work. They had that record pressing plant for years, and then about the end of that, the 8-tracks come along, but they never did move into 8-tracks. So that media went away, thank goodness, because it was awful. And then the next thing was cassettes, and then those were around for a long time, and then finally the CDs come around, and those were for a long time, and then now they waned, and I see a little bit of interest for the little thumb drives, but not much, not really. So most people just want to be able to download it, to have it on their phone, so they can carry around 300 albums on their phone.
Yeah.
Which it's just convenience,
right.
And it sounds good enough to them. As long as the consumer's happy, I guess that's all that. Honestly, at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I guess enough time has come along since the MP3 come out that we've got a whole generation, or going on two now, maybe that's
right.
That's what they're used to.
That's all they've heard.
All they've ever heard.
so to them, that's as good as it gets.
That's what recording and music's supposed to sound like.
Yeah, it's supposed to sound like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people, that I do some CDs for, and I'll give them a master, and they'll listen to it. It's like, man, this sounds great. And then they'll say, can you provide me with MP3s on this? Sure can. And I send them the 320, the highest MP3s that you can make. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, why do these not sound as good as the CD? I said, because they're data compressed. Well, I don't understand. I said, one is compressed, one is not. Mm-hmm. The one that sounds better is not. That would be your CD.
Yeah.
And then it starts making sense to them,
Right.
And then they start questioning the whole thing. I say, well, that's just where the industry's at. Mm-hmm. Be it good or be it bad, that's where it's at.
Yeah. Something interesting, people watching this, they may not know how cassette duplication used to work. Well, I know a lot of people probably know how records were pressed, or they watch videos about it.
Right.
But I know when I first came here, your dad used the telex system, which the cassettes, the tape was already loaded in the cartridge and everything on those.
Right.
And you popped them in all the slots, and then
Right.
they were duplicated from the master that way.
Right.
But not long after I started here with you guys, you got the bin loop
Right.
system, which was a step up, big time.
Big step up, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, when we first started the cassette duplication, it was the telex, and you had to build a cassette master. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just a step better than an MP3 with noise, and because you're only dealing with an 1/8-inch wide tape, and you've got tracks 1 and 3, and flip it over, and 1 and 3 on the other side. So you're going to have noise, and but then we got the attachment so you could run it from a 1/4-inch master. Well, that made it that much better. Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with a lot higher quality master, so you made better cassettes. And then that really went about as far as it could go. And then we invested into the Magnafax bin loop. Mm-hmm. And it first started off with a 1/4-inch master. Of course, we had all those years of 1/4-inch masters that we built.
That's where I got in on it.
Right. And then...
actually, I think you were still on telex when I first started, but it was 1/4-inch.
Yeah, and then it flipped over not too long after that to the bin loop. Mm-hmm. And it was so much better than the telex, it wasn't even comparable.
Right.
And then we went one more step, and we converted it to a 1/2-inch master. Mm-hmm. And that was as big a jump from the cassette master to the bin loop. Yep. Just by making the master, because you had so much more tape width, and you could print so much more level to it. Mm-hmm. And oh man, it was just a whole nother. It was CD quality.
Yep.
It really was, and because of how much better the master could be and was.
Yep.
And but then of course the next step after those went out about a little over 20 years ago. I think the last one I did was in about 03. Mm-hmm. So that's 22 years.
Yeah. And
then of course CDs were really coming on. I remember when we first started CDs, it was 1,000 cassettes, and they maybe wanted 200 or 300, maybe just 100 CDs. Mm-hmm. And then it finally got 1,005, and then it got 5 and 5, of each media, and then it just flipped. Mm-hmm. Then they wanted 1,000 CDs and only 500 tapes, or maybe 250, and then it just finally got to the point that it wasn't worth keeping the equipment up to date, so we just retired that line.
Mm-hmm. And for people watching that don't know what a bin loop system is, the master tape was in a continuous loop.
Yes.
Fed into
the bin.
Kind of a cage-looking thing called a bin.
Yeah, the bin. And you would actually feed the tape into the bin, and then you'd tape the two ends together so it would make an endless loop.
Right.
And it was all triggered and cut on tones that you put on there with this flasher tape that we used to use, if you remember that.
Yep.
And the winders that we used. So basically, the tape was recorded onto big reels. It was
Right.
recorded outside the shell and then loaded into the shell already recorded, and it would cut on those tones that the flashers would put on the tape.
Yeah.
And depending on the length of the album and the base of the tape, how many tapes that you could get per roll.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you remember, we had 60 bass, 90 bass, 120 bass. So depending on the length of the album, which base of tape you had to use to fit into the shell.
Right.
If you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure do.
That's been a minute ago.
Been a minute ago, but it's like it's yesterday in another way.
Yeah.
Really.
And just the procedure of how to make the masters.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot to do there.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah, like I say, after so many seconds after the program material ended,
Right.
you'd go so many seconds, and then you put that flasher tape about inch and a quarter long, if I remember.
right.
And just cut the flasher tape to that length, and you'd just paste it on the
Right.
the tape, the
Right. And right there at the
tape.
end where it would loop together, and then
Yeah.
you would put it together in the bin loop. Yeah.
And so that got them duplicated and in the shells.
Right.
And then your dad had an imprint machine.
Yeah, you would actually print on the shell itself the name of the artist or the group, and a lot of times we put the song titles on there, and maybe if there was room, a little contact information if there was room.
Right. And those used to be paper years ago, I remember.
Yeah.
And then it went to the ultraviolet ink
Yeah,
system.
printed directly to the shell with that ultraviolet ink, and then when it go underneath that light, it would instantly dry it, and it was ready to box and be ready to pack into the boxes.
I remember when your dad would have one ready to go. Sometimes if I was the only one available, hey, come here and catch for me.
Right.
He'd run them through, you know. Sometimes they get to going pretty fast, and I'd be trying to get
Oh,
them
yeah.
back in the box, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely a two-person job.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would really spit them out.
Yeah. Oh, and another step before that was building the stamper that
Yes.
did the imprinting on there.
Right.
And your granny usually built that stamper, but a lot of times I was trained to shoot the film that she made that stamper from.
Right.
So I got some darkroom learning experience there too, which was really neat.
The procedure with that was the person that was doing the graphic work, they would lay it out in a template that we built that was the size of a cassette shell, you know, all that information, and then we'd do a whole sheet of it. So you'd usually do it seemed like we'd do 5 at a time. I think it might have been 6. I don't remember now. And then you'd have to go in and shoot the film on it.
Yeah.
And then you'd take the film and you'd put it against that polymer material. And then we had another machine that you had to expose the polymer to. So when you put it into the scrubber, it would wash away everything that wasn't exposed. So the letters would raise. Mm-hmm. And then it would offset. It was like basically a small offset press. It would offset from the polymer that we would make to a blanket to the actual tape shell.
Yep.
So it was an offset print style.
Yep.
Yeah, so you had to go from negative to positive to negative, and had to make sure all that come out right. So when you read it, you could actually read it. It wasn't backwards or inside out. Yeah.
Yeah, and those that hadn't done the photographic Lightroom, you know, that was a neat learning experience for me.
Yeah, they have to do it under a red light.
Yeah, under a red light. There was 3 different trays.
Yep. Yep.
And
The developer, the fixer, and then the stop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or it would just keep developing and it overdevelop, and then you ruin it.
yeah.
Right.
And back before I know you're on a digital press now of printing things digitally,
Right.
which is a lot more economical.
Oh
now.
gosh, yeah. No waste.
Yeah, no waste and better quality too.
And more consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you know, we did film for those 4 different plates too.
Yeah.
CMYK.
CMYK. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black.
Right.
Right.
And I would. That's one thing your dad trained me to do too, was to burn the plates for those for that.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever work on the light table and do
Yeah.
the golden rods
Sure did.
and all that?
Yeah, line all the bullets up.
Yeah, had to
Sometimes I wouldn't get them quite right. He'd be fussing at me.
Yeah, because whatever mistake you made in the process before, if it wasn't just completely accurate, well, then it multiplied on the next step.
Yeah.
And if you had 4 of those to deal with, well, then you know your print would come out fuzzy.
Right.
It wouldn't be good and crisp where you could, it looked good, and you could read it.
Yep.
Especially if it was like a small, knockout where the letters were white. So basically what that meant is all four of those colors had to register around that white so the white paper shows through. Mm-hmm. So you had to really be accurate if it was small print or if it's small and thin. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And there were so many variables that were against you, if you developed the film right, if you got it registered right on the light table, if you got it registered right and you developed the plates right, and then you had to worry about, the flex of the paper, which could be from humidity or the temperature or a combination of both.
Yeah.
And then how well you set the press up, and between your ink and your we call it water, which is actually a fountain concentrate. But anyway, there was a million ways to do it wrong and one way to do it right. So it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And but back then when we printed, we didn't just print one job. We printed multiple jobs. Because I didn't need 10,000 of a print that I only had an order of 200, 300, 500 on. Mm-hmm. I didn't need 5,000 of them. I needed if it was 500, 1,000 or 1,200, then I put the rest in stock and hoped that they ordered on them again. Mm-hmm. So you would fill the page up with multiple different orders. So you would end up with that amount on each one of them, and whatever you didn't use on the initial order, then you had it for stock for possible reorders.
Yep.
Which was a pretty good. It was a pretty good method for doing it for a long time because there was enough business that it made it feasible, and there was enough reorders that that second order you already had part of the components ready to go and you'd already paid for it. Mm-hmm. So there was a better profit margin on the reorder because you'd already done the work.
Yep.
On the initial order. But you go down there and you look at those warehouses that had all of the extra overrun print, and it was to the ceiling, and it's like, well, that person passed. They're not together. They only put out one record,
Yeah, they broke up.
They broke up, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
And so there was just a ton of waste, and it just broke my heart when I finally cleaned those buildings out of the old print that I knew would never be ordered on again. It just broke my heart to have to destroy all that print because I needed the space worse than I needed the overrun print.
Yeah.
And now with the new digital press, it's a different deal. If I need 100, I run enough to do 100. I might throw away 2 or 3 or 4 different copies, not 200 or 300, but literally just a handful that's not worth keeping. If I don't have an extra 100, which I never overrun anything. I always run just the amount that I need. I might end up with 15 or 20 over, that's not enough for the order, so I don't even keep it. I just chunk it, and then run another batch, if they reorder. Right. So I literally had 2 buildings filled from the floor to the ceiling with overrun print for a 30-year stretch, and now I could literally put overrun print on this table right here.
Yeah.
For the last 15 years. Yeah. So, just a completely different business model, and like you said, it's no waste, and it's very consistent. So the first copy looks just like the last copy, looks like just like the last reorder, so you don't have to worry about, okay, that didn't quite match.
No lining bullets up.
Yeah, none of that. It does it for you now, so it's definitely a better method, and if not for switching to that system, we would be out of that part of the business. We'd still be in the studio business, but we wouldn't be in the repro business. Yeah. And really, it takes both, to make the business operate, because when this is slow, that's busy. When that's busy, this is, hopefully you can balance both. That's what I've tried to do over the last 35 years.
Yeah.
It's been a little challenging at times.
Yeah.
But, when you wear the hat in 2 or 3 different jobs around here, you get pretty good at them. And when you make mistakes, you don't have to look very far to who made the mistake. That makes you a whole lot more accurate the next time.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Well, brother, thank you for sitting down with me again.
Yes, sir.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time, just kind of rehash old times and talk about where it's going.
Anytime, man. I always look forward to your visits.
Yeah. Maybe somebody years from now will watch this old interview and say, those old guys knew what they were talking about.
Maybe they'll have something good to say about it.